So tell me who you voted for and why, as if we can guess. I don't know.
I voted for Kamala. I voted for Kamala because she had better policies on almost every single line item. When we're talking about foreign policy, um, she understands that our alliances with other countries are one of the most important things that we have as a nation, right? So very strong NATO, very strong the Trans-Pacific Alliance, right? Understanding that our soft power comes from the fact that we are willing to use our military to make sure that trade flows freely and to make sure that there's stability in the areas for our largest trading partners. Um, Trump, on the other hand, does not believe in that. He ran that probably NATO should go away. And he's already talked about pulling out of NATO. He's already talked about leaving Ukraine to out to dry and letting Putin just take over Ukraine, right? These things can't happen if you're going to have the soft power throughout the world that we've enjoyed for the last basically since World War II. That's made us the most prosperous country in the world. If we want to talk about economic policies, Trump's economic policy was tariffs. Tariffs are not a good economic policy. You can make a case that tariffs um, in a specific industry versus a specific country um, is like good national security. But as an economic policy, it is bad economics. It will lead to constraint of your economy. So you will bring less money in, um, and it will lead to higher prices, right? So when you have a constraint in the economy, that means that your economy is slowing down. That typically means when uh, companies are bringing less money in, they have to fire people. So that means unemployment goes up. Also, at the same time, you're raising the prices on goods because of the tariffs, which means that inflation goes up, which means that you have this thing that we had in the 70s called stagflation, right? And then on Kamala's side of things, she had some policies that I agreed with, deregulating the housing and then giving them incentives to build more houses, which will decrease the price of housing. Right? It's just supply and demand. Right now, we have so much more demand than we do supply as it pertains to housing, that you see housing prices continue to go up, up, and up. Right? You build more houses, those prices are going to end up coming down. Right? And for me, the housing price is the number one issue in our country. That is the number one thing why people feel that they've been left out, that this economy doesn't work for them anymore because they can't afford to own a home, they can't afford to live where they want to live, and then if they can, now they can't afford anything else. They can't afford groceries, they can't afford cars, they can't afford anything else because if you bought a median house in 1995, um, you would have paid like $239,000 in today's dollars. If you The median house price today is $470,000. That's a difference of $720,000 on a 30-year term mortgage, right? That's unacceptable. You have to build more houses. So the fact that she was for that was great. She had some other things that I was not in favor for. I think a tax on capitalized gains doesn't make any sense. Wealth tax doesn't make any sense, as well as some of the demand side subsidies that she was going to do as well. But the thing with Kamala is that she was going to have a Republican Senate So anything that was too liberal economically was never going to be passed. I didn't have to worry about that. Um, so I was just able to look at the good stuff and say, would Republicans probably vote for this? Probably. Okay, that's great. I mean, we could just kind of go through the list, and I I think that Kamala just had a better understanding of things than Trump.
So I'm impressed that you found some policies of Kamala's because it took a while for them to print anything and come out. And then when she had them printed, it's really hard for her to explain anything. And so I was impressed that you got something in writing there. Um, just a
Yeah, I
little
mean, so
here.
the the thing with Kamala is she wasn't a great communicator, and that really hurt her, obviously. And you'll bring this up the just the entire Biden incident hurt her as well. Um, but I do think that, and this is one of the things that one of the reasons why I wanted to have a podcast like this is that um, whether someone's a good communicator or not, or whether you can easily find the policies or not, that doesn't mean the policies don't exist, and that or that like the underlying data doesn't exist. And us being able to go through the underlying data and discuss those things, then we can have a deeper understanding, right? You may go through the policies that I just said were good, and you may say, "Oh, well, I don't really know about this," or and that's
Mhm.
fine. But at least you know at that point. So
Exactly. Yeah.
that's just me.
Yeah. I'm messing with you a little bit there.
No,
So
I think that's a fair critique of what happened. I don't think she was the best communicator.
to be completely fair, she on the surface at least, it seems like she was unaware that she was going to be running until very late in the game. And then, like, oh, by the way, yeah, Kamala's the candidate since we have all the delegates in already and everything's been set in
Right.
stone. Let's change it and Kamala's the girl now.
Right. He took your car. Where were you going?
So I guess I do need to explain who I voted for and why,
Right.
if you can guess. But I held my nose and I voted for Trump. I mostly voted against the corruption I saw in the Democratic Party, and I saw the handling of the Biden situation and um, Kamala coming in, and it's just it was rough. And then her refusal to give any policies was also like, okay, now you're really making it hard for me to want to vote for you. And then it was a lot of, hey, people have seen this problem under Biden. What would you do differently? And she constantly just affirmed Biden. And I was like, well, I don't like that. I don't like that. She was the border czar, whatever that means, and we had the worst border problem in history. I have a friend who was a border patrol agent for almost 30 years, and he left early under the Biden administration before his retirement age. Like, he took early retirement because he couldn't handle it anymore. It was so bad, the policies and the way that the agents had their hands tied behind their back to where they couldn't do anything, and it drove him crazy. I can't do this anymore. He said under Trump, it was the best border he had ever worked for. And then the stark contrast with Biden, and he couldn't handle it. And so all I'm saying, I'm giving testimony of someone else's account. Okay, and I think it was 27 years he worked as a border patrol agent, and those are the two extremes he saw in the last few years of his tenure there. And so when confronted with that, Mrs. Harris would just say, "Oh, I don't know. Let me talk about what has been and what will be, and um, rainbows and unicorns, and she never said anything. And so I already was leaning conservative. I was hoping against hope that we would have a better candidate, and I knew that it just wouldn't happen because of the celebrity of Trump. Uh, and so I voted against the Democratic Party and voted for the hope that Trump would take care of our border, that he would restore the economic growth to what it was pre-COVID, and that the cultural conservative policies, which we talked about the culture there, but the cultural conservative policies would be implemented. Um, Again, being a conservative Christian, I don't think Trump is a true believer. I think he's a political believer, and whoever is around at the moment, that's what he believes. Um, but I do think that he will and has opened up doors for conservative Christianity to be implemented. So that's why I voted for Trump, and mostly voting against liberalism and the Democratic Party.
Okay. Um, I think your friend enjoyed the border under Trump because the border was shut down because of COVID, so the people literally couldn't come across. And then also he did have um, he tried to roll back amnesty, or not amnesty. He tried to roll back asylum seekers, and that was overturned by the Supreme Court. So there was a time there where people coming over trying to claim asylum, um, they were just being turned away. Trump said no, and unless if you have like documentation that you're here, then we're not going to let you in. And the Supreme Court said that's not the Constitution, right? And Biden actually tried to do that in his term too, and they told him that's not the Constitution. That's not the Constitution for Trump. That's not the Constitution for you. You can't do that. I do think that uh, there was a lot of things that happened on the border that you had one you had people who couldn't come over because the entire uh, border was shut down because of COVID, and you saw that even before Biden took office, I think in November and in December of 2020, you saw a huge increase in immigration and people coming over the border. The reason being is if I've made a trek from Guatemala up to the U.S. border and I can't get there, I'm going to try to stay as close as I can for the next, however months. And then I'm going to, like, as soon as it opens up, I'm going to be going through, right? So you had more people who were waiting to go through. And then it got to a point where people there were so many people claiming asylum that people understood like, hey, I'm not going to get a court case on my asylum for 2 or 3 years, right? They're going to give me a ticket. I'm going to get in the United States, and then I'm not going to have anything for 2 or 3 years. So that did end up being something where like, hey, if you get stopped at the border and they tell you to go back, just claim amnesty, right? That was being overused. The problem is how do you know it's being overused until you process them in the court, right? So having the bill that Langford came up with, where you have more judges, you have more funding that goes to the courts, so that we can actually process these people. Because I think that you would agree that if people are escaping persecution, if they're escaping, places where they're likely to be killed for their beliefs, and they're coming over here genuinely trying to make a better life, that yeah, that is what America is about, right?
Certainly.
So setting those things up was in the bill that Kamala would always talk about. The problem is Kamala would start off with, you know, um, as you know, someone who grew up in the middle class with a single age mother, and then you know people would tune her out, right? Um,
She came off
yeah,
very judgy too. I don't know if it was her intonation or what it was, but just something about her is like, oh, she's judging me right now.
well, I think she was judging Trump, and this is something that we'll have to get into in another episode as well. Just the deceitfulness and the corruption that you talk about with Biden and that entire thing, and then Kamala being the presumptive nominee without like without a primary. I know that we've talked about this before, but Trump still denies the 2020 election, right? Um, and he did lead a coup against the government on January 6th, right? And these are like, if we're talking about um, like levels of deceitfulness and levels of like corruption, if we're like magnitude wise, um, one is attacking the pillar of what we hold dear as Americans. That's our elections and that's what the people say go. And then one is an old guy thought he had more mental capacity than he could, and uh, then the world saw like no, he doesn't. So everybody around him was like, hey, uh, we need to pivot here quickly because this guy is out of it, right?
So
Um,
I think, not to interrupt, but
no, no, yeah, it's
my
conversation.
my thought on this is okay. There's a lot of questions about January 6th, what actually happened, and we're going to get into it. You and I have already discussed that. We'll discuss it, and so there's questionability there. If it is what you purport, and that shows at face value, hey, Trump led a coup against the government, absolutely awful thing. 100% agree. If it is what it says, what the mainstream media says it is, then that's bad. Don't do those things. Okay, bad. If if what we know to be true about Biden is that hundreds of people saw him. Jake Tapper, did that book come out yet? It's coming out soon, right?
It's yeah.
Um, it was like, okay, hundreds of people knew Biden was well advanced in his dementia. We also just had this last week news come out that he's got stage 4 cancer that's metastasized to his bones. People know these things, okay? And they're like, "Oh yeah, you're good. You should still run for president." And all along the way, we have reports of executive orders going out and policies being written by Biden that Biden had no idea existed. And um, yes, Mike Johnson, right, Speaker of the House, um, just had an interview about that recently, where he's like, he spoke in private with something about something with Biden, and Biden's like, I never said that. He's like, yes, I have the policy right here. I never have seen that document. Biden said, I didn't do that. Well, okay, that is equally attacking our democracy, equally attacking our government, and it is equally corrupt. If so, you can't downplay one and say, "Oh, it's just a poor old man that was trying to live out his twilight years as president," and the other is a civil war. They're equally corrupting uh, an equally corrupt government and a equally corrupting due process.
So when you sign an executive order, you tell the public, it's on video. You tell the public what the executive order is. That's why when Trump signs every executive order that he signs, he he looks at it and he says, "What is this about? What is this doing?" Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I agree with that. And he signs it off, meaning he's never seen these in his life. Biden, on the other hand, he would go out there and he would say, now whether he was coached or anything else, he would go out there and he would explain, hey, like this is why we're signing it. This is what the executive order is and everything. So I either don't trust Mike Johnson as being truthful here, or this can be something where it's like I don't remember signing it, and it's like okay, yeah, this dude has dementia, right? Like he's losing his mental faculty. Um, the other thing is if you read Jake Tapper's book or if you listen to Jake Tapper, he talks about how the staffers around him were or around Biden were um, they felt like they were in an awkward position because Biden has always had these gaffes where he takes long pauses. He doesn't really get to the point. He makes these like really offhanded comments where you're like, what the hell are you talking about? Right. So the staffers
Yeah, the
didn't
long leg
really,
hairs and like,
yeah. So like
have you seen that?
well, I mean, when he was running with
Obama.
Obama in 2008, he had a war veteran who was confined to a wheelchair, and he said, "Hey, stand up. They're clapping for you." Um, so like the staffer said like it was hard to tell like is he like mentally declining or like how much of this is just Biden being Biden and how much of this is like a true mental decline, which makes a lot of sense because like Biden's always been kind of an idiot, right? Like those have been so like we
I
can
think
have things that are bad, things happen that are bad, right? And the people around them made bad decisions without it being like nefarious, without it being like, oh, like this is a huge like cover up. Um, now,
I don't
one of
know.
the questions that I have of like for the January 6th stuff is um, how much like did you look into it?
I have probably about average, to be honest, at this point.
Okay.
Um, I I was watching that day, not the mainstream media, but online reports as things were happening, um, because it was already going to be an eventful day with Pence confirming or doing whatever to the election, which Pence obviously, I think everyone should agree he did the right thing on there. But that aside, it was going to be an eventful day, and then there is one person that I'm connected to on Facebook that was going to be one of the rally speakers for that day, and someone who I don't trust, and is a ticking time bomb wherever he goes, and so I assumed that something crazy might happen. So I was already watching that. I watched the timing of like the tweets going out and the videos and all of that, and so that was enough for me to have question about what's actually happening. Kind of, I at this point I have it in the same category in my mind as the Las Vegas shooter. Like what actually happened with that? That's those details don't make sense. Or like even the JFK assassination. Some of that stuff is kind of weird. It doesn't make sense. And so I think it's one of those main events in history. Certainly, it's extremely relevant to us because we lived it. But I think it's one of those events in history that the full story isn't out there because there are a lot of questionable details.
Do you know that we have like over like 170 eyewitness like testimonies of people around Trump and people like not only like around Trump as it pertains to January 6th, but just the entire like election denial of plans of of what they were looking to do and everything else.
We also have witnesses around Pelosi and the videos that came out just recently about all of that. We also have videos of people being escorted by the police. Like, hey, here's the chambers in the Capitol building, and here's this, and here's that, giving guided tours to the supposed fanatics who were rioting and destroying, desecrating our nation. And so, I don't know. There's a lot of questionable stuff out there.
Yeah. One of my questions would be, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way, was
Yeah.
is by the time that the election happened, um, 20 um, like January 6th had been out for three and a half, almost 4 years, with the January 6th committee being out there, with the eyewitness testimonies being out there, with just all of the video from the event being out there. Um, why why weren't you inclined to take it more seriously as part of your criteria of voting for Trump?
Because again, the full story hasn't been explained yet, so I don't know.
How do you know that?
I don't know enough about it to know if it's noteworthy or if it was actually a riot, or if it was, hey, we have 23 FBI agents that are in the middle of this crowd already getting things going, and they're inciting something from within the crowd. And this is actually a inside job trying to make this president look like some evil dictator who's trying to throw overthrow the government.
Wouldn't that be easier to know if you took the time and you like read the testimonies of the people around Trump and like the things that Trump was saying? Um,
So yeah,
yeah,
yeah. On one part, on the other, it's like he is such a polarizing individual that I don't know if I can trust either side giving testimony about him.
you don't know
Where
if you trust his daughter giving testimony about him.
it depends on the day, man.
I like this. So this is the issue that I have with a lot of the things around Trump. So like when he goes and he talks to John Eastman, and John Eastman says like, look, yeah, I mean, you lost. We know you lost, but if we can break the ECA, which is in the Constitution, um, we may be able to take it to the Supreme Court. We'll lose 8-1. We'll probably lose 9-0. But by that time, we will already be in office, right? So what they did is they hired 7 slates of fake electors in these battleground or these battleground states to submit their elector as like, hey, I am the actual elector here, um, to send that up to the United States, and that Pence was supposed to say, hey, what's going on here? We have 2 sets of electors. I don't know which one is real. The night before, Mike Pence told Donald Trump, no, I'm not doing that. And Donald Trump said, well, you're going to do it if you know what's good for you, right? So what happened, right? Trump Trump spent those 3 months telling people, hey, January January 6th, you need to be down at the Capitol. They're stealing the country from you. We have to stop the steal, right? So he was the one that got everybody down there. It's not like other people were like, hey, let's go to the Capitol. He was like, no, you're coming to the Capitol and we're stopping the steal. They're stealing the country from you, right? And then during his speech, he says, "You're going to fight like hell." He says that you have to go down there and you have to make sure that these lawmakers have the courage to protect your country, right? Like he sends them down there. We know, like the first people who broke through the Capitol broke through with police shields. They went in there, they broke the windows out, and then they busted through the door. At that point, the police were escorting them to places where the Congress people weren't, because at that time they were yelling, "Hang Mike Pence," and 1776, which 1776 is just like, this is our revolution, right? We're going to overthrow the government, right? That was what they were looking to do at that time. So the police were like, hey, like, let's go, like, let's get this way and everything else, while they could get, the Congress people out to safety. Um, these things are all documented, and you may look at it and you may say, I still think I have questions, which is fine, but at least you would be able to say, well, I combed through everything and there are some things that I just don't know about, right? But to say there are some questions here, well, did you look into it to see if the questions were answered? No, but I should. It ends up being like, oh, okay, well, it just wasn't as important to you. If something is important to you, and there may be questions around it, but you don't know if there's questions around it until you actually like look into something, right? Um, so yeah, and we can get into the like specific testimonies and everything else later, or anything, but like those are things that I think are important for us to um, be examples of in this podcast of
Yeah,
like,
for
hey,
sure.
something happens. I don't know. I've got questions about this. Okay, let's look it up, right? Like, okay, were all your questions answered? No? Okay. Like we can still have questions about it. But were some of them answered? Okay. Do you feel better about it at this point in time? Like, do you have a better understanding of it? That's all that this podcast is for, is so that you guys have a better understanding of events that are happening, and the different perspectives on how people view that, because we do get into an ideological, um, what is that, like a echo chamber, um,
Yeah,
and even when you feel like you're not, you are. So being able to see perspectives from both sides is very helpful, because three people can look at the same sort of facts and come to different conclusions. Um, but if you aren't willing to discuss why people came to the different conclusions, then you're really never going to have an understanding or get to a point where we can find a compromise or find um, I guess, a unified truth, that we can all kind of agree with.
yeah, and that's the big thing. Our nation right now, our world is in chaos, and we need unity with social media, and the algorithms constantly giving you more and more and more of what you want to see and what you want to hear and what affirms your beliefs. I even things like AI, Chat GPT, I tell it all the time, stop telling me nice stuff. Stop being nice to me and just tell me the truth. Because everything is geared for consumerism. They want you to have more of what you want to hear, what you want. And so it's creating a gap between the two sides of the aisle. The aisle is getting wider, and we need to cross that gap. Communication, healthy communication, is the bedrock of unity, and that is the point of this podcast. We're going to disagree because we're on different sides of the aisle, but at the end of the day, and at the end of the episode, I can ask things like, Ian, are you still my friend?
Yeah,
Yeah. I think we're still friends. I still like you.
right.
Um, and I'm I'm still excited. Still excited to keep talking about this stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to dive into specific issues. I'm excited for us to have these questions for each other that sometimes may be hard to answer. Maybe like, yeah, you're right. Like
Mm.
I was looking at that wrong or things like that. Because as long as we're working towards a common goal and we're open to figuring out what the solution is to get to that goal, then we're going to have progress. I think the issue becomes people think that a solution is binary, right? It's either
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
option or this option, and my option is better than your option, so your option sucks. And it's like, well, they both might really suck, right?
Right.
Um, but
Chances are both sides are wrong.
but maybe you say something, and I'm like, oh man, I never really thought about it that way. Let me let me like reconfigure in my brain my argument or my solution to kind of fit some of that in, and that's going to shift the end result because solutions aren't solutions and policies are not binary, right? So yeah.
Yeah. I'm just glad that I'm right about everything, and you're you're learning. No, I'm just kidding.
He is going to be right about everything, right leaning about
Right.
everything, but I'm going to be correct
Oh,
about
okay.
everything.
Well,
Uh,
hey, I have one thing that I need to say here. Um, is that sharing? Okay, there we go. America.
yes, I'm not going to get us canceled too quickly in this podcast, so uh, I will keep my thoughts to myself when I look at that video. Um, but outside of that, yeah, I think we're still friends here. I think that we
Yep.
can have productive conversations, and we are excited for you guys to be a part of that. Engage with us. Tell us the things that you want to see us discuss, questions that you may have, or things that you disagree with us about. And these are conversations that we can have on the podcast and get a deeper understanding. We're only two perspectives. There's 370 million different perspectives in the United States, right? Hopefully we've reached the globe, but it does seem like we're pretty U.S. centric on our politics. So, um, outside of that, just remember to like, subscribe, and share, and then also comment. And we'll be back next week with some more content.